So then, okay. So there's this whole medicine cabinet of remedies. So the antidote, literally to everything, is the opposite. So the antidote, if you're regretting lying, then the antidote is during your day to tell the truth. That counteracts the energy of the lying, doesn't it? It's a natural thing. Every time you play the wrong note, the antidote is to play the right note. It's sort of logical, you know. It replaces the wrong note. It replaces that habit in your mind. So the antidote is anything. Throughout your life, if you're regretting killing, a marvelous way to live your life is to save creatures, to save animals, or to help sick people. If you're regretting stealing, you give things. They're the obvious antidote in a day-to-day life. But the most potent antidote for all the Tibetan lamas, in general for all the Tibetans, in general in the practices, particularly the Tibetan teachings, any practice we do that involves the Buddha, because of the power of enlightened beings, the connection we make with the enlightened beings, the power of enlightened beings, it makes the practice so much more stupendous, so much more powerful karmically. So here the antidote in the structure in the framework of a meditation at the end of the day is, now you have the Buddha above your crown. Now you do a particular visualization. We're going to do the practice, aren't we, Lynn? Is that the plan? That's the wish. We'll do it, yes? Lynn?
Yes.
Okay,
Cindy has an image of Vajrasattva ready to go. We've got the mantra ready to go.
Good, anytime you. Okay, we'll do it. So it's important to describe it first, then we'll finish our session. We'll do it before, then we'll have questions and art. No, we'll have questions first, then we'll do this. We'll finish with the session, I'd say. We'll finish the session with the meditation. Good. We've got 2 hours, right?
Yep.
Good, darling. Wonderful. Okay, so this one then basically the third step, the remedy, is just this: you're using your creative imagination. We really need to talk about this one, because most of it we just think, well, I'm just pretending. What's the point of visualizing nectar coming and saying these weird Sanskrit words? How can that purify me? We can't get this. But let's look at the logic of this. If there's not logic to it, it's foolish and superstitious. So don't do it. I agree. So Lama Zopa says, basically the third step, there's many ways of doing it, but the way we'll do it is you imagine, there's Vajrasattva above your crown, you imagine nectar comes from his heart, you imagine it enters into you. Then the first step, you imagine purifying all the actions of your body. Then you imagine purifying your actions of speech, and you imagine purifying your mind. And there's different visualizations. So these meditations are really creative. They're very proactive. They're very tasty, because if you think about, this is the point, if you think about this. Every second of the day, we're thinking something. Now that's called visualization. You're thinking about your boyfriend, you're doing visualization. We say, oh, I can't concentrate. We say, oh, I can't visualize. Rubbish. Well, look, when you're angry with your sister, you do perfect concentration. You don't have to tell people to be quiet. I'm trying to be angry. Be quiet. You can just be angry with single-pointed concentration. There's no doubt. And you can visualize your sister. You see her, you hear her saying these words. We have got excellent visualization. We have excellent concentration. But the trouble is with delusions, We're not used to visualizing and having positive thinking and positive concentration. So we can do it. We go, oh, I can't do this. Because, of course, it's a bit foreign. It's Tibetan. It's coming from India. It's not our culture. It feels kind of weird. It doesn't look like psychology, but of course it's psychology. There's nothing else but psychology. All these Buddhas are just manifestations of different qualities that we're trying to cultivate, or various delusions we're trying to transform. It's marvelous psychology, actually, all these Buddhas, So Vajrasattva is not our creator. Not like that. It was just we're using Buddha. So the point is, we do the work. My mind does the regretting. My mind does the refuge. My mind does the compassion. My mind does the visualizing. My mind wants to purify. I imagine I'm purifying. And like anything anything you do when your mind is super engaged in it, then obviously you do it better. It's logical. If you're really focused on playing that piano properly, and you're really focused with confidence that if I practice really hard, then of course, what do you think the results will be? You'll become a good musician. So the mind is what makes it happen. But we're not used to thinking this way when it comes to this. We just think, oh, this is just fantasy. This is just imagination, imagining purifying. I'm still a bad person. It's irrational. As Lama Yeshe says, it's your mind that creates negativity. So it's the strength of your mind that creates positivity that purifies it. This is something so fascinating. Again, we have this very concrete view. I'm a bad person. And then we do all the steps, we do the regret, we do the purification, we do the mantra, we do the determination to change, and we still think I'm the same bad person. That is schizophrenic. That's demented. That's like thinking you've practiced the piano and then you're still the same bad pianist as 24 hours ago. No, you've just done 24 hours of practice, which is moving from being a bad pianist to a good pianist. You can't say it has no result. Everything you do has a result. So we have confidence in this logical process. It gives us great courage, So the third step in this particular meditation is visualizing this nectar coming and saying the mantra. So what's the point of mantra, these Sanskrit words, Well, it's said in the teachings that Sanskrit is a super powerful sound. The Tibetans haven't translated the mantras. They've left them in Sanskrit. Okay, they've developed their own pronunciation of the Sanskrit, but they don't translate those. There's said to be something marvelous about the sounds of Sanskrit. There's this very delicious little meditation that you can do called blessing the speech, where you recite literally the Sanskrit alphabet, because these sounds are said to be so powerful. And this is also something interesting to remember. This is from the Vajrayana as well. The description of how we're constructed, according to the Vajrayana model, which is the same system as the Tibetan medical system, is we've got this gross consciousness and gross body, which is what you see here. Then you've got subtle consciousness, and that's your mental states. All your mental states are more subtle, and they are inextricably linked to their own. The whole physical world is made of the 4 elements. According to the Vajrayana, the whole universe is made of the 4 elements. There's the physical energy, which is the 4 elements, and then there's minds. And every mind in the universe is inextricably linked to its own set of the 4 elements. It's just the way it is. It's just reality. So, as Lama Zopa says, in the Kalachakra Tantras in particular, there are these detailed descriptions of the intimate relationship between internal and external energy. Internal is your mind. External is the physical element. So this is the external. This is the gross level. Now, at the subtle level, we've got these 72,000 subtle channels, like a subtle nervous system throughout our entire body. They spent 12, 14 years studying this in the Tibetan medical system, And within those channels are coursing all these wind energies, this prana. These are the basis of our health. It's a really intricate system, like the Chinese one, like the Ayurvedic one, So all our states of mind, love, compassion, attachment, anger, they're all linked to their own winds. Clearly, we don't discuss this in the West. We talk about a brain, don't we? This is a different model. So whatever your mind does, first, karmically, programs your mind with that thought, not to mention your speech. And then the winds that state of mind is connected to, that if it's virtuous, it purifies those winds, which in turn karmically manifest as good health in another life and later in this life. Because the gross is just the manifestation of the subtle. But negative, like Lama Zopa said, even just being angry, that produces the habit in your mind to be angry, and then it pollutes your wind energies, which eventually karmically literally causes you to have a sick body. And then eventually, long term, it manifests in the external environment as the imbalance of the elements. Like in San Francisco, you have your earthquakes. All of this is coming from the negative states of mind of sentient beings. There's no creator up there. There's no mystical thing. There's the world even out there is long-term the product of the collective and individual karma of the minds, of the actions of sentient beings. We are literally the creators of the universe. This is the Buddha's view. So, every time you even have a positive thought, you're purifying your mind, you're growing those tendencies of virtue, and you're purifying your wind energies, which purifies your body, which heals illness, and in turn creates good health. This is the way the whole process works, So don't think minds aren't important. We think thoughts aren't important. Oh, it's only in the mind, we say. This is demented for the Buddha. Lama Zopa said, this is very shocking. The vast majority of all sentient beings on this planet have absolutely no idea that what goes on in their mind plays any role at all in their lives. Think about that. That's insanity, but that's how we think. Why? Because we're obsessed with the external world. That's where everything is. And our mind is this incidental thing. And we don't even notice what's going on in our mind when it vomits out the mouth. Oh, I must be angry. Or when you're in your bed and you're inert from depression, you can't do anything because we don't pay attention. So this is the opposite view. Everything in the mind counts. So then every thought you have that is regret, every thought of compassion, every thought of imagining purifying is stupendous. Stupendous, real work. Not just fantasy, So we should be so delighted to think these thoughts, do this practice. So this one is you visualize, we'll do it later, and we visualize different things. And then as Lama Zopa says, and this just sounds again very mysterious to us, he says the more faith you have in this process, the more you purify. So let's look at the word faith, because we get superstitious. Confidence, confide, with trust. When you're confident, if you're driving a car and you're confident you can drive the car, guess what? You drive the car. If you're confident when you do something, then you do it. Well, the mind, if you're confident because you want to purify and you're confident that this power of your mind and your reliance upon the Buddha is a process, then it will purify. That's what purification is. That's what karma is. You do it. But we're so used to believing it's something out there that has to do it. And I'm this little lump of me here that's set in stone. This is so depressing, Then you do visualization where you purify the speech, and then you purify your mind. And the fourth step, Pabonka Rinpoche says, is the most important. The resolve, the determination to change. This is so powerful. So you make decisions. Like if you've taken your vows, then you would reiterate, I will never kill, I will never steal, I will never lie, with confidence. That's what a vow is. And that every time, it's like doing push-ups every day. You keep getting better at it. If you keep having that view every day, that vow every day, I will not kill, you're practicing the habit to not kill. It's not rocket science. It's not like wishful thinking. Every time you play that piano, you get better at piano playing. It's kind of logical. So these four opponent powers, so tasty if we do it properly. You'd be sad not to do it. You're being your own friend is how I like to think about this. You'd be sad not to involve yourself in this at the end of the day, Then as Lama Yeshe says, you'd go to bed with a happy mind. Lama Zopa says you're insane not to do it every day. And the best is to finish the day with it. It's really psychologically very helpful. So with the last step, you don't lie to yourself. I will never badmouth my boyfriend again if it's your favorite habit. So you give yourself a timeline. You decide, okay, 24 hours, 5 hours. You be sincere with yourself. You be realistic with yourself. That's why I don't have to think about it as some religious habit that you do. You've got to go, I better do my practice. You whiz through it. Oh, I've done my practice. No, you haven't. You have. It's better than nothing. But the more you engage in it with sincerity and humility and courage and confidence and kindness to you and others, it's a powerful practice. So there's more to say about how it purifies, but I think it's good if you have questions. I'd love to hear some questions. If there aren't any, that's fine.
So unmute. How are we doing this?
Are there any in the chat box? No?
No, I didn't ask for people to do it in the chat.
Okay, no problem. No problem. So if you have anything to say, just stick your hand up and talk to me.
I'm so grateful that I stumbled upon you.
Good, Lisa.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
I've been spending a lot of time listening to you and doing other reading.
Wonderful.
And I stumbled upon a treatise by, I think, Lama Yeshe.
Yes.
And it had to do with suggestions for daily practice.
Yes.
For purification.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I read it, the more frightened I got.
That's interesting. Tell me about it.
Because there was so much emphasis on all the terrible things that will happen if I don't begin like this devoted practice.
Well, that sounds like Lama Zopa, not like Lama
know.
Yeshe. That sounds like Lama Zopa, not like Lama Yeshe.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Lama Zopa can be very hellfire and brimstone. I believe you, honey. I understand.
and it creates a hesitancy and
Yeah, of course. I understand, darling.
sort of a lack of confidence.
Of course, darling. I understand.
Okay,
So,
I'm glad to.
so are you sort of reading a bit and getting a sense of the path, though? Because I mean, all these lamas speak very differently, you know, and because we have so much guilt and fear about punishment and reward, it's like shocking to read sometimes the way they talk. I agree with you. But there's other ways. So what about what you're hearing tonight? Do you like what you're hearing tonight, for example, or other things you've read?
I'm tearful. I'm excited. I'm
optimistic.
Optimistic.
Good. Yes.
Yeah,
There's
tearful.
different ways of presenting, and there's different types of minds, and some, you know, I mean, yeah, there's just different ways of presenting. I mean, Lama Zopa is an amazing, holy being who's renowned, who's incredibly compassionate and kind. But when this is a very typical kind of 10th century Tibetan way of talking. I'm not trying to be rude about Tibetans. They're my teachers, you know. So it's very fun. It's very interesting. But it depends on the mind. Some people love that talk. Some people can hear it immediately and they're transformed by it. So everybody's very different, Lisa. That's why we've got to be very kind of relaxed and easygoing and read different things and pick up the meaning of it and make it common sense to ourselves and commit and know that we're the boss. You understand, Lisa?
Yes, thank you.
Darling. Good. I'm so happy. So keep reading, honey. Keep moving. Keep listening. You know, just keep unpacking it all. Do you understand?
Okay.
Good, darling. Wonderful. What else, people?
Anybody else?
No. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, so even this purification practice, the way we're talking about it, is very nice and personal. It can still be very shocking, depending on where you're coming from, you know? I mean, like, especially the view of karma. I mean, recently there's a person I'm hearing about who heard teachings a couple of years ago about karma, and she'd been sexually abused as a child, and she's freaking out completely and feeling that the teacher kind of was telling her that she was the cause of her own suffering, so she's having panic attacks. So you can hear everything in very different ways. It's up to us to be very easygoing about it and listen carefully. Don't rush in. We're the boss. We're the person who has to decide. And because we've got all these ideas about religion and then we have guilt and blame, it's very hard to get past all this, to kind of hear it, you know. So we just have to take it all at our own pace. It's so important, you know. Because we have so much guilt and so much shame and so much neurosis. We do have, and this is what causes so much pain. Yeah. I mean, that's why I would like to use an ordinary example of, let's say you decide to eat well. There's no sort of mystical junk all around good health. We love reading about good health. We love reading about the terrible, this is an interesting point, Lisa. We read the terrible consequences of eating sugar, of eating this kind of food, of eating that kind of food. I remember, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow, she's got this website about health and everything, or whatever she's got. She's wonderful. She said, I'd rather eat crack cocaine than to eat processed cheese. So, you know, we just laugh at that. So when we hear about eating processed cheese and the results, we hear about cigarettes and the result, we don't think someone's punishing us, do we, Lisa? Do you understand what I'm saying? We are delighted to hear it. We thank the doctor for telling us all the terrible consequences of smoking. But as soon as we hear it in terms of religion, we hear someone punishing me. Do you understand, Lisa? And it's because of the view in our mind. So that's why we've got to hear it in the same way. It's out of self-respect. So if you hear Lama Zopa telling you all the consequences of what will happen to you if you don't do this and don't do that, so it's like he's trying to be a kind doctor to you. Okay, maybe it's tough medicine, but his motivation is to help you get mental health. Do you understand what I'm saying? But it's hard to hear it like that. That's why when you hear Lama, I mean, yeah. So it's a very interesting point. Thank you, Lisa. So the other thing I think I want to talk about for anybody, you know, if you, What happened?
Sorry.
Yes, go, Barbara. Go, darling. Yes.
In relation to that, I think sometimes what I hear, and I don't know if Lisa was talking about this exactly, is that if you don't do it correctly, all of these it's terrible, or it could be worse than doing it at all.
You feel a bit pressured to do it perfectly.
Yeah, or that's like, well, maybe I'm not doing it correctly, and this is worse than if I didn't do it at all. So
I see. But again, that comes also, if you think about Federer teaching you how to play the best tennis. He'll be very fanatic and he will get you to do that backhand 400 times so you get it done perfectly. And you want to do it perfectly and you are happy to do it. But again, as soon as it comes to religion, we panic and think we're going to get judged and we're going to get punished if we do the wrong thing, or I'm a bad, that. So we sort of have this the irrational demands on ourselves to be perfect. It's just foolish.
Well, no, I mean, I guess I'm saying because I've heard that said, not that I'm necessarily doing
okay.
it.
Oh, yeah, that for sure. But that, of course, that can be true, can't it? Yes, exactly. That's exactly, Barbara. So another thing about karma that's helpful to understand, if you've had a few teachings and understand, it's helpful to understand how each of these 4 steps purify each of the 4 ways karma ripens. So as we know, the Buddhist view is the main way our karma ripens is in terms of a type of rebirth. 2, our actions in the past ripen as our tendencies, and that's pretty reasonable. I mean, if you play piano all day, you're not surprised that you're good at playing piano. If you're angry every day, you're not surprised that you're good at anger. We don't think of it like that when it comes to the emotions, but it's obvious. So the second way your karma ripens is as a habit. So we get born, we enter our mother's womb programmed with our own tendencies. This is why the Buddhist view is crucial to understand. We don't get our tendencies from our parents. That's the biggest shock to the neuroscientific view. I mean, that's the logic we use in the materialist world. You track yourself back to your parents. That's the only place you track yourself back to. So your anger comes from your parents. Your jealousy comes from your parents. Your being good at football comes from your parents. Not for the Buddha. You bring them with you. And then your parents might also be good at that. So then you support each other in it, It's a very clear point. It's a crucial one because you can really then take responsibility for your own qualities, good and bad. They're your tendencies. Then the third way our karma ripens is it's called experiences, similar to the cause. So if you think about it, we are all very social beings, aren't we? We live in relation to others. We're born into a mother. We have siblings and aunties and uncles and next door neighbors and dogs and rats in the kitchen. We're always surrounded by other sentient beings. And this is very simple. If you think of your life up to now, you see that your happiness and suffering mainly is in relation to how you're seen and treated by others. So if you wanted to track your experiences in this life, you could divide it into 2 categories. All the people and sentient beings who've done mean things to you, and all the sentient beings and people who've done kind things to you. And often they change roles. So these are all of these experiences at the hands of others. Because we are social beings. We create karma in relation to sentient beings in the past, so we keep bumping into each other, and then we experience the results of those actions in relation to others. So for example, keep going about that. The 4th way our karma ripens is called environmental. Even the environment, as I said before about the way Lama Zopa said about the Kalachakra Tantra, even the way the physical world impacts upon us. So, for example, one action called non-killing, conscious intentional non-killing. The first way that would ripen would be you get a human birth. We got one of those. We won the lottery. Second, you'd be born, and it doesn't always follow. You will, because look at humans, many humans, So second, the result of non-killing you'd be born with a tendency to not kill. Well, look at the world. It's the opposite. Most humans, they got a human body as a result of non-killing, but got another bank vault of karmic seeds that ripen as your tendency. Then in this life, most humans kill something. Even most religions say it's okay to kill. It's normal to kill. I was taught as a Catholic, I love my Catholic upbringing, that God made creatures for our benefit, to eat and do the rest, It's a very interesting view, not the Buddha's view. So killing is normal. So you're born, but the result of non-killing, especially if you've done the purification practice in the past and you've lived in vows of non-killing, you'll wake up in this life with no thought to kill. That's really powerful. The third way non-killing would ripen is in terms of your experiences at the hands of others. You won't get killed. You won't die young. So why we're still alive isn't because we're healthy, it's because we've still got non-killing karma we've got non-killing karma in our non-killing petrol tank, gas tank. And the fourth way non-killing ripens is in terms of the environment. You'll be fat and healthy, and whatever you eat will nourish you. Like Warren Buffett, who's close to 90, and his diet since he's born, I always quote this, when I read his biography, his daughter said water has never passed his lips. His diet since he's a little boy is cheeseburgers, Coca-Cola, and vanilla ice cream. And he's 90 and he's fit as a fiddle. That's not because he's just lucky. It's because he's got very strong non-killing karma in his experiences similar to the cause, gas tank. And the third one, that's the environmental result. But that's the environmental result. The food nourishes him and he's fat and healthy. But the third karmic result of non-killing is he's old. So he's got plenty of non-killing karma in his gas tank. So everything we think and do and say produces any or all of these four results. And any and all of these four results we can change and purify because it's in our hands. We are the boss. And the way to think about purification, so okay, the whole first level of practice, in the Lamrim, the way we present the teachings, and the very first level of practice, I like to call it junior school. The very first one, as Lama Zopa says, the most immediate, first level, entry level, right now, this second, the first practice to do is stop killing, stop lying, stop harming sentient beings. Now, why? Jesus will tell you it's because God said. I'm not complaining. Buddha will tell you it's because guess what, honey? Everything you do and say and think programs you will bring similar results. So it's because you do not want future suffering. Then the next thing to do, you stop sowing more negative seeds, but then the next practice is this one, purification. You've got to take care of, you've got to put atomic bombs under all the millions of seeds we've planted in past lives that are sitting there latent, waiting for the conditions to ripen as my suffering. So we've got to do purification. This is a perfect day's practice. You learn to control your body and speech. You don't harm sentient beings. You learn to begin to watch your mind because you don't want suffering. And you do the purification. This is the very first junior school level of practice. And you do this every day, you've got a really excellent practice. Because one, you're subduing your body and speech. Now you become more happy. And two, you're sowing marvelous seeds for the future. Now it's 8. For me, it's 8:26, so maybe we should do the practice. But I'm sure there has to be more questions. Just in case. Check it out. You might have more questions. Sitting there in your mind. No? Nothing? No questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Elaine. Talk to me, darling.
Hi, thank you
Good.
so much.
Good.
So I've been doing Nunjo for a while,
Okay.
and I did the Vajrasattva practice and also the prostrations and doing it with the visualization of my parents and everything. And when I finished the official count of 111,000 of those, I found that I had been wanting to purify a lot of past karma and harm, maybe from my ancestors and so forth. And I found myself actually feeling a lot of anger towards my father in particular for certain things that he's done. And the whole practice ended with me kind of formally ending my relationship with him to draw a clear boundary. And I've had a bit of I don't really know who to ask, but you feel like the right person to ask about this. But, there's a part of me that feels compassion, but also feels a lot of anger. And I wonder if those can coexist or if it's just a sign that I need to continue to do more practice.
Sweetheart, Elaine, you're so honest, you're so brave to talk about this. It's amazing. Well, my own feeling as you're talking is that yourself, you're not a particularly angry person. overtly. You don't shout and kick and yell, do you? That's right. So what happens is like this, because you're that kind of person, which is excellent because you don't harm others, it's brilliant. But if you're a sentient being like the rest of us, you have attachment. And attachment is this emotional hunger to get what you want. And then when you don't get what you want, in particular in relation to your father throughout your life, then aversion arises. But you've suppressed your aversion, darling. You've never thought you're angry. You've only now by doing bucket loads of purification are you having the courage to allow your shitty stuff come to the surface. As Lama Zopa says, after years of, the dirt is coming out. So you're actually now acknowledging what's been there all your life, but you didn't express it as anger. You've kept it quiet, which is good because you don't harm others, but it means you've hidden it from yourself. So now you're seeing it. So darling, it's marvelous you're seeing it. So okay, at the moment you've cut your daddy off because you have to do that for your own sake. That's fine. But when you know logically, if you understand the teachings, that if you keep moving and keep purifying and owning that anger and owning the karmic relationship between you and your father, because it's like those two young nuns forgiving their torturers, honey, based on the view of karma. So all it says to me, if you've got a devoted practitioner, it sounds like you are, you've got to keep understanding the logic of karma until something hits you that you've got a role in this. That's the part, and that's the part that's painful. So as you keep practicing, that anger will dissipate and it will only become compassion. But give yourself time. What do you think?
Yes,
Good.
I will continue.
Keep working on it, darling. Good
Yeah,
on you, girl.
thank you.
You're very courageous. That's the disadvantage of being a nice person. You pretend you haven't got aversion. But the more you understand Buddhist psychology, it's so interesting. We've all got attachment, which is this emotional hunger to get what I want. There's the three poisons, as Buddha calls it. Ego grasping, the sense of a me in the first place, then attachment to get what that me wants, and then aversion and a panic attack when it doesn't get what it wants. But people like you, it doesn't get expressed. So the world thinks you're a nice person. You think you're a nice person. You are a nice person. But it's in there still. But that's what as we go deep inside, you'll start to see the aversion. Do you understand? And that's mental anger. A person like me, I have mental anger and verbal. I shout it out. It's very evident. But at least for me, if I'm brave enough, I can see. I can't pretend I haven't got anger. But now you're seeing it, baby. I mean, a friend of mine who's done years and years of retreats, serious 3-year retreats, intense, all like you're doing, all the non-dros, and then serious retreats, tantric retreats. And at some point he was out of his brain with violent rage and aggression and arrogance. He thought he was going crazy. Years of retreat. You'd think after retreats you get better. But then he went to Lama Zopa very distressed, and Rinpoche laughed and said, fantastic, the dirt has to come out. So this is such a good analogy when we understand, if we take the Buddhist view of countless past lives, if we take the Buddhist view of the way the mind works and the delusions, then of course, as we purify, it's like going to the gym. You come home after the first day in the gym, you don't feel better, you feel worse. But it's a good sign. It's crucial to understand that all this is part of your process of dealing with your own stuff, and you're purifying. The dirt's coming out, baby. So be happy about that and know that the anger will eventually go, but you've got to do the work. Keep doing the work. And I think the view of karma is the most powerful one, to really see the logic of it and understand you've got this intense history with this man from many past lives. You've been his mummy many times, and and it's like this karmic relationship between you. So you've got to factor yourself into it. Don't see yourself as an innocent victim. It's important to think that. And then slowly the anger has to go logically if you keep working at it properly. And it'll only be compassion. Do you understand? Good, Elaine. And there's we're all like this, variation of the theme, It's really helpful. Thank you, sweetheart. Well, let's do the practice. Got 30 minutes. We'll just go through these steps we just talked about. Just do it. And do it at your own pace. Do it according to what you feel works. I'm going to say a few words. You do with what you want with those words, If you don't want to think what I say, you don't have to think it. I'm not forcing you. So we'll just do it very casually. Try and be very sincere. Try and see it as natural psychology, not religion, It's so important. And bring whatever you have got from your practice into this, according to you, Okay. So closing our eyes helps because we can be more private. So just get yourself comfy. I'll just go through very briefly the position all the yogis over the centuries have found to be most conducive for good meditation. Of course, we're just doing this very casually, so don't worry about concentration or anything. Just do our best. So have your body in a really nice position. If you're sitting cross-legged, be like that. If not that, I mean, they all say when you're going to become a serious meditator, like living in your cave day and night, you need to be in full lotus position because the body is very stable, and the subtler energies can flow very nicely. So if you can't sit cross-legged, His Holiness said, if you can first start your session just for a minute in single with the legs in full lotus, that's really auspicious. And if you can't, that's fine, to sit ordinary cross-legged. If not, that's sit in a chair. But if we're in a chair, don't slump into the back of the chair. So hold yourself now upright, okay? And put your feet firmly planted on the ground. So then your body upright, but very relaxed. Don't tense your muscles. Have your tummy muscles, your abdomen relaxed. Your shoulders square but relaxed. Your hands in the lap, in whatever mudra you know. You can have it like this, thumbs touching like this. Left, this is a classic mudra. It's up to you to decide. And then thumbs touching, resting in your lap, or just resting in your lap in a natural way. Then your head is important. Slightly tilted forward. Because if you thrust backwards, you get agitated. Your chin tucked in a bit. And then your tip of the tongue. This is odd. It seems odd, but it's very logical, very natural, very practical. All the yogis have found that, if you have your lips slightly apart and your tip of your tongue resting behind your top teeth, just near the palate, when you're a serious meditator for hours on end, it prevents you from dribbling. It prevents you from having swallow the spit. Have your tongue behind the top teeth. And then finally your eyes. Again, the great yogis who meditate day and night, they want the light to come in to keep that mind sharp. So of course they're not distracted because their mind's more subtle. But we'll get distracted if we have our eyes open probably. So have them lightly closed and have the eyes looking down beneath your eyelids. So that's the position. So settle into this position and then forget about your body, because your body doesn't meditate. Your mind does. This just makes it most conducive, that's all. So settle into this position. So now we just do the 4 steps. We just think, go through this process. So we just think today, anything we've said and done with our body and speech that have harmed others. Think like that. You maybe got mad at the dog, you got annoyed about you. And we're talking about actions of body and speech. We're not talking about the mind yet. We're talking about things that directly impact on others. So there's not much, you think of certain things, but I think in this life, think of certain things you've done in this life. Like I always think of my abortion. Maybe we've done fishing. Maybe we've killed all the ants. Maybe we killed our pussycat because we meant well. Maybe we were cheated on our husband. I mean, just think of the things we often do because of attachment or because of anger or resentment that we do with our body and speech that harm sentient beings. Just think for a couple of minutes. Just acknowledge some things. Maybe since you're tiny, things you've forgotten, things you've done with your body and speech based on delusions that have harmed others. So think. This is the attitude. This is regret. Think, Okay, out of my foolishness, out of my ignorance, out of my attachment, my anger, I didn't know, maybe I didn't have a view of karma. I didn't know I was sowing seeds in my mind that are going to harm me, because everything I think and do and say programs me that will produce my future experiences. This is the basic principle of karma. If I'm buying into that, then how foolish I was. I didn't realize. It's like you ate all that sugar. You didn't realize it would ripen as diabetes. What a fool I was. So I regret having done those things because I don't want the future suffering. I don't want the future suffering because I'm sick of suffering. I know I'm sick of suffering. I don't want those actions to happen to me, not to mention other types of suffering, I'm sick of suffering. I regret from the depths of my heart. So now we can imagine, if you can, imagine since beginningless time, if it makes sense to you, the concept of karma, past lives, that whatever I've done, I'm thinking this life the same, whatever I've done that I don't remember, any tiny thing I've done with my body and speech since this birth, since before, that have sowed seeds in my mind, that are actions that have harmed others, based on anger, based on attachment, based on fear, based on jealousy. We're all human, All these seeds are planted in my mind, and they're going to be just growing, and they'll manifest one day in suffering. Either the tendency to keep doing it, the experience of having it happen to me, an environmental result, or even the lower realms, thinking like this. And I don't want suffering. I'm sick of suffering. I know I'm sick of suffering. I can't stand bad things happening to me. I don't want this suffering. I regret whatever I did to cause it, from the depths of my heart. So now we can think about our delusions, the attachment and the fears and the anger and the depression and the resentment and the jealousy, all the stuff that we are so familiar with. Completely regret all this nonsense habits. I'm fed up with all this, sick of this suffering, sick of these habits. I regret from the depths of my heart. I'm sick of suffering. So if we're a Buddhist and we've got vows and things, we regret in particular our broken samaya, our broken commitments, these things. I don't want the suffering. I don't want to be separate from the Dharma. I want to keep meeting the Dharma, meeting my teachers in the future. Of course I regret all this. So now next step, whom can I turn to? Where's the doctor? Whom can I rely upon? Who's got the methods that I can use to fix myself? Well, that's for us, the Buddha, So you visualize, if you know about Vajrasattva, this, that picture, you had the picture there, sorry, you can put the picture up if you like, I'm sorry, I forgot. We can want to look at him. Otherwise, just imagine enlightened energy above your crown. If you want to be specific, and look at the picture there. It's very hard to see. It's quite small. But if you're familiar with the image, otherwise don't get caught up in it. Don't worry about it. Just visualize, imagine enlightened energy manifesting in this radiant white light body, sitting very blissful with beautiful face, looking very compassionate. He's above our crown, facing the same way as us. And crucially, if we have a spiritual teacher, we think it's their mind manifesting as the Buddha in this glorious form. He's holding a bell in his left hand, which represents wisdom. He's holding a dorji in his right hand that represents compassion. And the union of these two, we want to unify these two. So just feel this presence of this enlightened energy above your head. Be so happy, and delighted that you've got a doctor, that you've got the Buddha whose teachings you want to practice, you've chosen to. So this is reliance. Be very happy. And the second part, now we have compassion for those we've harmed. The fetus, the creatures, the fish, the boyfriend, the ants, the sister, the mother, the father. This life, but also past lives. All these sentient beings we must have harmed. And think that they suffer just like me. They're exactly the same as me. They're suffering because of their past karma. I have such compassion for them. Now I have to purify for their sake. First one is for my sake. Now it's for their sake, because they are like just the same as me. They don't want to they don't want to suffer. They want to be happy. They've created their own suffering. But I have such compassion for them, for those I've harmed. Now, if you can, be brave enough to have compassion for those who've harmed you. If you can. If you can't, you don't think it. Because like those young nuns who have the view of karma very strongly, of course, they said, we have compassion for our torturers. That's because the view of karma for them is kind of very real, It's kind of powerful. We can't force that on ourselves. If you're not ready for it, like your father, for example, we talked, if you're not ready for that, you leave it there. But if you can, this is very powerful, because they will suffer in the future. That's the basis of compassion. All the sentient beings whom I've harmed and who've harmed me, such compassion. I must purify for their sake. And now the third step, the remedy. So now we just use our creative imagination, okay? We imagine from the Buddha, so happily from Vajrasattva, he sends very powerful, like a hose of nectar from his heart chakra that arcs around and enters our crown, and this powerful liquid energy, this nectar, white nectar, like a hose, very powerful, forcefully entering our crown, completely filling us. And what it does first is force downwards all the imprints of all the harm we've ever done since beginningless time with our bodies. And it forces it out like filthy liquid, driving it all out through the lower parts of our body, disappearing into space, not one atom left. Because there's no karma that can't be purified. There's nothing set in stone. So imagine this nectar filling us, forcing out all the negative imprints of all the actions of our body, disappearing into space, strongly visualizing this, wanting this, imagining this. It's your mind doing it. That is what purifies. The strength of your own mind wanting it. So as we do that, if we know the mantra, we can read it or just concentrate on the visualization if you like, and listen to the sound of the mantra. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido me bawa Sutoshayo me bawa Suposhayo me bawa Anorakto me bawa Sarvasiddhi me prayata Savakama Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido me bawa Sutoshayo me bawa Suposhayo me bawa Anorakto me bawa Sarvasiddhi me prayata Savakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido me bawa Sutoshayo me bawa Suposhayo me bawa Anorakto me bawa Sarvasiddhi me prayata Savakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe. Imagine now completely full of this blissful nectar. Imagine all the negativity of your body since beginning of time disappeared into space, not one atom left. How marvelous. Again, Vajrasattva, Lama Vajrasattva so compassionately sends this powerful nectar, again from his heart, that arcs around and enters into our crown, forcefully filling us, but this time driving up to the surface all the imprints of all the harm we've ever done with our speech. So in this life, it's mainly our speech, isn't it? We clever humans with our clever sounds coming out of our mouths, Maybe we don't go around raping and killing too many people. It's our speech that does the problem. The bad mouthing behind backs, the harsh speech, all the rabbiting on about nothing, all the lies, or even just the speculating. We mightn't mean to lie, but we're such clever people. We want to always say the right answer. So we end up saying things that aren't true. We don't even mean to. Our speech is ridiculous, It's all the harm we've done to sentient beings with our speech. Imagine, and since beginning of this time, of course. Imagine, just forced out through the top part of your body, disappearing out like filthy liquid into space. As long as, she says, it's like when you turn on the tap in the sink, all the junk in the glass comes to the surface, doesn't it? Just like that. Imagine, want this, delight in this. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido me bawa Sutoshayo me bawa Suposhayo me bawa Anorakta me bawa Sarvasiddhi me prayata Savakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido me bawa Sutoshayo me bawa Suposhayo me bawa Anorakta me bawa Sarvasiddhi me prayata Savakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido me bawa Sutoshayo me bawa Suposhayo me bawa Anorakta me bawa Sarvasiddhi me prayata Savakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe. totally full of this blissful nectar. Imagine. Not one atom left of all the nonsense of our speech since beginning of time gone. How marvelous. So now Lama Vajrasattva this time sends light, laser beams of light. Now I don't know if light can bend around, but we pretend it can. So from his heart now, these laser beams of radiant light that penetrate our crown and instantly fill us. And as Lama Yeshe says, the instant you turn on a light in the room, the darkness is dispelled, isn't it? Right there. Same here. So what does this purify? The delusions, the root of our problem, the ego grasping that clings to the intrinsic me, that's fear-based, that then the main voice of which is this craving, this emotional hunger of attachment to get what me wants, and then the panic attack of aversion, anger, irritation, frustration, or despair and depression, this whole spectrum of aversion, which is a response when attachment doesn't get what it wants. This runs the universe. These are the three poisons, the three toxic emotions. And all the other ridiculous delusions, Buddha talks about an entire map of the mind, 84,000 of them. Imagine all of these that have no intrinsic nature in our mind, are not at the core of our being, do not define us. They can be removed. This is Buddha's entire point. So imagine this, be so delighted by this. All these delusions eradicated instantly by this radiant laser beams of light filling us. How amazing. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anuratta Mebawa Sarvasidi Memprayatsa Sawakama Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabha Mahasamaya Sattva Ha Hung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anuratta Mebawa Sarvasidi Memprayatsa Sawakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabha Mahasamaya Sattva Ha Hung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anuratta Mebawa Sarvasidi Memprayatsa Sawakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabha Mahasamaya Sattva Ha Hung Pe. Gone like a dream. This is the fundamental point that Buddha makes, is the basis of all Buddha's teachings, that he has found from his own experience that these neurotic, deluded states of mind, these I-based, fear-based states of mind that we in our world think are normal, and you'd be weird if you didn't have them. For the Buddha, no. These he has found to be not at the core of our being, and therefore can be removed. And that they are the basis of what we do with our body and speech. You know, our body and speech are like the servants of these crazy delusions. So here we imagine purifying all of this. All the actions we've ever done since the beginning of this time with our body, speech, and mind. How incredible. I'm now feeling mind blissful and clear. So amazing. So one more time, we do one more visualization. This is like a second rinse. We now purify even the subtlest imprints in the mind that then remove even the obstacles to our omniscience. And now we can imagine we actually become a Buddha. So it sounds a bit busy, but you know the way the lamas do it. You do these three together. First the one going down, the one going up, and then the light. Try and imagine a bit of all. Purifying even the subtlest imprints. Achieving, and then now achieving, removing even the obstacles to omniscience. That's how they say it. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anuratta Mebawa Sarvasidi Memprayatsa Sawakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anuratta Mebawa Sarvasidi Memprayatsa Sawakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabha Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Sama Manupala Vajrasattva Teno Pajita Dita Me Bhava Sutoshayo Me Bhava Subhoshayo Me Bhava Noracha Me Bhava Sarvasiri Me Prayasa Sawa Kama Sutsa Me Siram Shriyam Kuru Hong Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Chatra Gata Vajrama Me Mutsa Vajraba Mahasama Sattva Ahung Pe. Totally purified. How amazing. So now the fourth step, the most important for Bhavanka Rinpoche. We now make decisions, okay? So we have got to practice it. We have taken vows, and we've got Samaya and Tantric vows and Bodhisattva vows and lay vows and blah, blah, blah. Then we reiterate what we can say. We reiterate our commitment to these and be very clear with ourselves. We don't lie to ourselves. Make strong decisions. And we haven't got all these. We just think, I'm going to do my best not to lie, not to kill, not to steal, and your own particular habits. I'll try and not badmouth my boyfriend, maybe for 24 hours, especially your old rubbish habits. You give yourself a timeline. Be very sincere with yourself. We all know the more accurately you make a decision, the more likely you'll do it. You know, it's obvious. So just speak to yourself for a couple of minutes. Make some decisions. Decisions to change. Even for 5 minutes. Or it can be for the life. It depends on what you know you're going to accomplish. So now we imagine now Vajrasattva, Lama Vajrasattva. And if we have a spiritual teacher, feel very strongly that the Buddha is your Lama, the Lama is your Buddha, and we feel very close, you know. So feel like he's delighted, so happy. And then what he does is that imagine the lotus he's sitting on just dissolves up into his body, and then he dissolves into white light. Imagine this, all this energy of the Buddha, the energy of the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha, the energy of the body, speech, and mind of your Lama, dissolves through your crown and merges with the energy of your body, speech, and mind. Be so delighted, you know. As Lama Yeshe says, union, oneness. So now just full of this blissful energy, your own true nature, and then just now for a minute, just expand. Imagine yourself expanding to fill the universe. And no thoughts, just be radiant and joyful and clear and blissful. Just imagine that. No thoughts for about a minute. And now relax. We can have the prayers away now. Lynn or Cindy. Good. Relax now. So, yeah, that's the general idea. So according to your own style, you can do this way. But the crucial one I'm trying to get to is just here is real psychology, not just religious, not just guilt, not just neurosis. Be happy with this. And that's all based, as I said before, all of this is based upon the Buddha's fundamental view that all the nonsense is not at the core of our being. I mean, this is already should be so inspiring for us. This should give us courage. Because we're human, you know, we've got these old ancient habits. So habits die slowly. But Tibetans have a wonderful way of saying, we say practice makes perfect. They say it beautifully. They say nothing gets more difficult with practice. That's very encouraging, isn't it? So anyway, I think it's a great practice. I love doing that practice. So what else, you people? Anything else, you people? Any other questions to talk about?
I have a question.
Who is I? Which I has a question?
Barbara.
Where are you?
Barbara here.
Oh, Barbara, darling. Yes, absolutely, sweetheart. Talk to me.
So I'm a little bit confused. I guess I thought we would be, each day we'd be going over the things for that day rather necessarily than for our whole life. Is that not, can that be either way? Or
Well, you know, it's okay. If we take the view, Barbara, that our mind is beginningless and we've got these beginningless lifetimes, of course it's pretty cosmic, if we have that view, then everything we've ever done that has been negative, the seeds are in the mind, and those that haven't yet ripened will ripen. So we have to put atomic bombs under them, not just today's actions. You don't just pull out the weeds you planted today. What about all the seeds you planted yesterday and the day before and the day before? You've got to put practices to purify, to pull them all out. Do you see my point? It's very logical, not just today. Today is useful because it reminds you of particular things that you're familiar with, and they're the ones we can remember, let's face it. And then we all know, if we know that our mind goes back and back, we've got all of these countless times. So of course we have to think everything we've ever done, because all those seeds are literally in your mind, and you don't want them to ripen. So it's a very logical thing. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. But it just seems so vast, and then you're doing it again
vast.
the next day. Yeah.
But of course,
and then,
but then what's the problem? Of course it's vast. So where's the issue?
well, then you're doing the exact same thing the next day.
Well, what else would you do? It's a gradual process of, you know, what is gardening? If you just say even a garden that takes 20 years to grow, what do you think you're doing every day, Barbara? You've got to tend to it every single day because you understand the logic of the dynamism of seeds and fruits. You can't just sit there and think of a few weeds today and then hope it'll be okay. You've got to keep pulling out the weeds and keep growing the flowers. It's a never-ending process until eventually you're the Buddha, baby. Until now you've got a perfect garden. Then you can relax.
But I don't have a perfect garden every day, and
Stop. No, Barbara.
Everything totally every day.
Barbara, this is not the point. Who says you should want a perfect garden every day? What are you talking about?
Because you're purifying everything totally every time you're doing it, presumably.
No, well, if you did purify it, actually, you'd be a Buddha today. We are training ourselves to purify. Every day you get better at thinking these thoughts. Every day you get cleverer. Every day you get more wisdom. Every day you get more compassion. But you think of it every day as if you're purifying. If you actually did purify, Barbara, you'd be Buddha at the end of your session.
Yeah, I didn't mean that I'm actually doing it. I just meant that it's part of the process. And the practice. And the second part that I just want, so if I'm regretting something that I'm not willing to change, like I regret that animals are killed because I eat meat and fish, but I am not going to not eat meat and fish, at least not.
Okay, we have to. So then, okay.
So should I not regret that, or should I?
There's a lot of assumptions in what you just said, Barbara, that we have to discuss. It's, you know, we have to look at the assumptions you've got. So no one's saying that you're eating a piece of meat is necessarily a negative action. Who says that? Where did you get that from? So given that you think that, then we've got to analyze it, Barbara. Okay, let's analyze it, Barbara, as much as we can. I was late, so we've got 10 more minutes. If people have to go, please go. So, okay. First of all, the general idea, Barbara, is everything we think and do and say sow seeds in the mind. You get that makes a sense? The process itself. That makes sense. Then we all know, don't we, every single thing we think and do and say, because we're ordinary people, or do and say, impact upon sentient beings. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Even if you didn't eat food, Barbara, even if you lived on the air, like some great yogis can do, just by you existing, by breathing, by walking, by talking, you are slaughtering countless sentient beings. Would you agree with that? Your body's a walking zoo, baby. They're living beings. Every time you drive a car, I remember on Google one time I checked up, and sure enough, someone's done the research, some Dutch fellow, that just within like 1 kilometre, one car on just the number plate per kilometre, per this, is like trillions of little beings are slaughtered to death. That's a fact. Do you agree that's a fact?
Yes.
Do you agree that even if you eat vegetarian food, this is something that we get very fundamentalist about. We get obsessed about whether we eat the animal's flesh. But what about wearing leather shoes? What about wearing leather belts? What about wearing silk? What about so many things we do that have impact, that have used the bodies of animals? That it's not just eating. We're so obsessed with food, I think we just go on about eating. Eating is one aspect. Of course, the meat industry does destroy the planet. I've heard all those things. But that's not the main issue either. I remember hearing about one Australian scientist got a bit fed up with all the fundamentalist vegans and vegetarians who run around beating everybody up for not eating, for eating meat. And he said, he talked about one wheat field in Melbourne somewhere, where, obviously in the off season there's no wheat being grown, but it's millions of little field mice gather there. There's a plague of field mice. And guess what they have to do to grow the wheat? Well, they slaughter the field mice, the millions of them, and not kindly. What for? The wheat for the holy, for 80% of the wheat is for the holy vegans and vegetarians, and the 20% is for the bulls, for the meat eaters. So you can't stop harming animals just because you don't eat or do eat meat. You've got to get the bigger picture. And then you get some compassion and realize that because on this planet, our very presence harms others. So we don't intend to harm. So we've got to acknowledge that reality and have the wish to do whatever we can not to harm sentient beings. So whatever you do, you're going to harm. Even that rice you're eating, the eggs you're eating. So you be conscious of it and you have some compassion and you think, I don't want to harm beings, but so I'm going to maybe eat this meat. And then you say a mantra and you blow on the meat, and even a bone that's 1,000 years old. Lama Zopa said, because of the intensity of the karmic connection between that body and the being, wherever it exists now, you'll bless the mind of that being. That will get the benefit of you even blowing a mantra on the meat. So we've got to have aware, not just, I don't want to regret, I don't care. That's too blunt, Be aware of our role on this planet. It's so interdependent, and our very presence harms others, and we don't want to harm others. So we have this, we regret whatever we've done. We do everything we can not to harm others, and we purify, and we have compassion. This is so powerful, so delicious, so human,
Good. Thank you.
Good, darling. We become conscious, Barbara, more and more and more. And every time we do this work, it's like you're doing a bit of gardening every day. You're helping. Every time you see, the other part about purification, when you pull out your weeds, it leaves space for the flowers to grow. So it's a really dynamic process. We want to grow love and compassion and wisdom, but we've got to get rid of the rubbish first. So by purifying the negative, we enhance the positive. It's a very practical psychological process. And every day you get better and better and better at it. And you literally grow your mind. Do you understand, darling?
Yeah.
Good. Yes, Christina.
Thank you, Venerable Robina.
Good job.
I know we're running out of time, but I just had a question that maybe goes off Barbara and Elaine's questions about, could you speak a little bit more about this latent anger, and if you recognize that coming out, whether it's through doing practice or you start to be aware of it, but you've always been and see yourself as a good person, but then you see this kind of like, you see that's inside you, and then does it have to come out? And if it comes out, but then what are you meant to do with that? Aren't you creating?
What do you mean so Christine, when you say come out, you mean expressing it through anger?
Yeah, expressing it.
With your words, for example.
Yeah, with words.
So what's the question exactly then?
If you could just talk a little bit more about how we're supposed to deal with this latent anger that maybe it's there and you see it, and if it has to come out, where does it go? And
well, I mean, it has to come out. This is the point. So we've got mind, we have body, and we have speech, isn't it? That's why the very first level of practice in the way the teachings are all presented, especially the way the Tibetans present the teachings and the Lam Rim, or the equivalent of whatever tradition it is, whatever Elaine's tradition is, I don't know. So the very first level is, given that we're driven by delusions, given we've got the three poisons, the ego grasping, the attachment to get what the I wants, and then the aversion when it doesn't. Everybody in the universe, including the monkeys and ants, have this. We're driven by this. This is a model of the mind that refers to all living beings. And then we've got the other delusions that branch out from there. So our first level, given that we're driven by these, because we don't want future suffering, our very first level of practice is try not to kill, not to follow the actions of anger and attachment, and at least refrain from the 3 of the body and the 4 of the speech. If we could accomplish this level of practice to some degree, we'd be a stupendous practitioner. So this is now hard work. Now, people like you and Elaine, because Christina's like Elaine, she's a nice girl, Elaine, she doesn't get angry easily, she's got a patient nature, but like you, because she's got a patient nature, nobody sees her as getting angry, so she also reinforces a view that she's not an angry person. So therefore, and because most of us don't look into our minds, we only notice fairly superficially, then we don't realize we've got aversion. Every time your father did what you didn't like, whatever it was he did, every time something that Christina, whoever it is she's mad at, since you've been good girls, you've noticed it, maybe you've had fear in response, maybe you did have aversion at the time, but you pushed it down because you want to be good girls, especially you Asian girls want to do what mummy and daddy say perfectly. You're really good girls, you Asian girls, I'm not being stupid, get my point. So you have this image of yourself as being a good girl, and you are good girls, I promise you. Christina's a really good girl, I've known her for years. But like me, I'm a naughty girl. So it was clear that Robina was angry. She'd storm and shit and counter, was a bully to her sisters. It was evident I had anger. I couldn't pretend I didn't have aversion. But you guys can sort of, like, you don't want to know about because we feel guilty. So now there's Elaine doing all her damn practices. It's all coming out. There's Christina doing her practice. It's coming out. So you're a bit scared of it. It's very scary to see it. We don't want to see it. So, of course, if it comes out, it's a bit late. It's out in the mouth, Christine. If you shout at your father, Elaine probably doesn't, or whatever. If it comes out, then at least then they said you'll do the regretting part. At least you can see it then. But if it doesn't come out, at least you've got to learn to see it by seeing your mind and not wanting it to come out because you don't want to harm others. But that not coming out doesn't mean suppressing. And this is our trouble in our culture. We either vomit it all out or we live in denial. This is not the view here. The third approach is to become super familiar with our mind. Like I'm saying to Barbara, become conscious of what's going on, become responsible for what's going on. And by doing your regretting every day, you're regretting your anger or whatever it is, then it won't ever have to come out. How marvelous. But we tend to think in our culture, the only way we see it is if it comes out. Now, maybe we've got to be able to acknowledge it, and sometimes we're very scared of it. That's why we need good therapists sometimes, a sounding board. You go to see your friend and you want to vomit out your feelings and be emotional, but you feel safe with that person. You know it's okay. Many times people don't express what they feel because they're terrified to do it, because you don't want to be seen to be a bad girl. So there's all these different approaches. We've got to be clear. But the bottom line is, like I'm saying to Barbara, we've got to become conscious of what the hell is going on in our mind and see it for what it is. And own it. And as soon as we can confront it, if we deny something and push it away, that increases the suffering. That's what we mean in our culture by PTSD or something, because you've lived in denial. But if we can express it at the time and see it, it will go, So it's a very tricky process, being your own therapist, as Lama Yeshe puts it. Are we communicating here, Christina? And this is why, Barbara or Elaine, all of you, every day doing this inner process at the end of the day, you're putting atomic bombs under these habits. It's such a powerful psychological process, and you do it with such a good heart, and then really you're putting atomic bombs under these tendencies, Do you understand, Christina?
Yep, I understand. Thank you, Venerable Robina.
What else, people? This is such a helpful conversation, I think. What else? Anybody else? Any old rubbish, bring it out. No. Okay, you don't have to. It's all right. Well, maybe that's enough. I don't know. Lynn, are we done, you think? Enough for tonight? To start our new year? Good, darling. I'm happy to see you all happy. And just keep moving. Just keep moving and keep moving and keep moving. And just know that we're purifying all this crazy year and we're moving forward. Just have optimism. Bodhisattvas have optimism, okay? They're all perky and optimistic. And why they're optimistic is because negativity is not inherent. Because negativity is not set in stone. So you've got to have optimism. If you don't have optimism, you'll go mad. And the reason you have optimism is because you know yourself you can change. When you know you can change, you can help others change, no matter how bad things are. So have a long-term view, okay? So important to have a long-term view and be optimistic and rejoice We never rejoice in our good qualities. I never met a person yet who says, Robina, I can't stop thinking good thoughts. We all the time rabbit on about the bad ones. So we've got to consciously have the good thoughts. Say them. Don't wait for them to come. Speak them out. This is very profound practice. It sounds so cute, but it's quite profound. So rejoice in your good qualities. Rejoice in your good qualities. And never give up.
We rejoice in you, and I want you to come back again. And
Happy
again.
to come back. Jung
Okay.
Chub. Jung Chub. So just may compassion and bodhicitta grow and grow. Jung Chub. Sem Chog Rinpoche. Ma Kye Panam Ke Guchi Ke Pa Nyampa Me Pa Yang Gong Ne Gong Du Pelba Shog. That's it. Thank you, precious people. Much
We've got a
love.
whole bunch of prayers we can show if you want to.
No, that's enough. Enough.
We're done.
All right.
Thank you.
Much love, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Venerable
Bye.
Robina.
Thank you, people. All of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, darlings.